the shotgun. Everybody knew who he was and knew him. They knew him.
Right, he was the man. I saw the movie.
Yeah.
He had a big old funeral and everything.
That's right. That's right.
Really?
Newark was probably the closest. It was probably the most Nation of Islam aligned city in the nation. I mean.
And so Malcolm's daughter put a hit out on the minister. Malcolm's daughter put a hit out on the minister.
No.
Oh Lord, get back to it.
No.
Let's go. Hold on.
That was a white guy who tried to enlist her to do something.
Oh.
and she and it came out and the minister found out about it and made a made an overture toward
Right,
her.
he got her an attorney.
Right.
Yeah.
And that helped. That's what eventually caused the rehabilitation in the relationship between him and Betty, because he reconciled with Betty after that. Haki Mahabudi was the one who arranged that.
Oh, really?
Haki in this city, yeah. He got Farrakhan and Betty together.
What? Salim. Hold on. We gotta get this back. Come on. Stop playing with the cameras.
Maybe we should call her and let her know what's going on.
I did. I told her it was an interruption.
Okay.
And she said, okay. Because she asked me what was going on.
I can imagine.
Hello?
Hey, we're still working on it.
Tell her.
Okay.
Hold on. Tell her to go back in the room.
Go back in the room.
And we gonna,
I am.
She's in there.
She's in it. Okay, give me a second.
Okay.
The Wiz is working on it.
Okay.
See, give me a second to get you back, but I'm gonna get them going.
Oh, you don't need to get me back. Don't worry about me. Go ahead and get them going.
I don't know what you did, but you did it right.
Don't worry about me.
Let them right. Can't say you a dime, you're a 20 piece. Cause girl, you're the reason I be acting funny. Everything in me telling me don't let you get away. And all the guys looking like they wanna love you. Every day I'm your body, got not over my dead body. Why you gotta look so good? Why you gotta look so good?
Once they fix it, we can go a little longer.
When you put that grown on, why you gotta look so good?
I'm gonna make a good excuse.
I can look and see you're not an average chick.
And we're back after that unscheduled interruption. I think we can attribute that to this tornado we've been having in Chicago. Tornadoes devastated the suburbs, and I think it kind of disrupted some of these cyber lines, these cyber connections. So, are you there, my sister?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you quite well. Yes, ma'am. So, what is your? We don't have that much time left, and I want to get your evaluation of all of this. I mean, what if you didn't write this book? What would you say are the most important aspects of this this piece of work? What would you point to as the most indelible impact that this book will have?
I think that it's a great piece of journalism. And you really, if you're not sure what journalism is, you get to see what journalism can do as far as uncovering stories that we didn't know about people, and that's an important discipline to know that is out there. The other I would say is it's great on bringing in history and putting Malcolm in history, in the context of history, to show that, when people calling him a violence monger, right, and saying that he was preaching violence, and when actuality he's preaching self-defense, and and what he means by self-defense, and then what's so brilliant about him is just you get to see how who he is growing up in the context of his family and the world that he was navigating, and and you get to see, understand how brilliant what he was saying really was in the context that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And this book, I really think it works hard to bring that to you, to bring that picture to you. And the writing is brilliant. I love the writing of this book. And one of the things for me,
in fact, I think if there were no other reason to buy this book, the prose alone would be a reason. And a lot of people say who are not that into Malcolm, they say that some of the asides that your father goes into, the way he elaborates historical context, takes our minds off the subject. I disagree completely. I think it is a complete coloring of the context and helps us understand where Malcolm fits. In a lot of ways, we don't really know how he fits, and this helps us understand in ways that no other book does.
Yeah, and we worked really hard to do that. I mean, and to me, I saw this early on that this was the aim of my dad, was putting Malcolm in context, and in a way that people have not seen him, and he really wanted to do that. And the other thing is that Dad, it was really important for Dad to understand when we talk about dealing with this false sense of inferiority, how Malcolm really gives us that language, and it's through Malcolm that we really can overcome this false sense of, recognize it in ourselves, but also overcome it. And I'll just very quickly use this example of when I speak to younger students, when I say, okay, Malcolm was said to preach violence, and he really was preaching self-defense. And why was he preaching self-defense? Because there were these incidents where you had clans coming into communities and doing the night raids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, and then you go to the cops, you go to your local authorities, and they said there's nothing they can do for it.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because they're the Klan members that rode into your community. But that's not what he said. What he said was that if they're not going to protect your rights as a citizen, it is your right and your responsibility to defend your property and your family. And yes, that's self-defense. And then he said, when you take that position, people and the media are going to paint you as the reverse racist, the reverse violent person, and that's just the way they're going to do it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And Malcolm really, he did that. And when you see that, you understand that you have to take a position. You have to stand up and fight, for yourself. There's no other way to do that. And so Malcolm really, he synthesized that for us, and you really can't get around, overcoming that without going through Malcolm.
Absolutely. And another thing Malcolm did was that sentiment really is what gave birth to the Black Panther Party, that notion of self-defense, and that we had to do it for ourselves. And even as he gave birth to the Black Panther Party, he also gave birth in many ways to the cultural nationalists, which was the ideological rival of the Black Panthers, through his notion of connecting to Africa, the cultural nationalists, the fact that we have a culture that is outside of the Anglo culture of the U.S. And so that gave, that nourished two strands of the Black movement, as well as, the Black Studies movement, when Malcolm was talking about us gaining scholarship about what happened in the Black world and not relying on white scholarship. So he gave birth to so many tendencies in the Black community that it's really uncanny how he did it.
Yeah. And we owe so much to him on that, and so much more. I mean, people have asked me, about what Malcolm think about these times that we're in. And I think really we should look at how these times would have been different if Malcolm was allowed to survive. Who he was dealing with, who he was meeting, who he was, that last year he was focused on trying to gain support, for taking up the charge of human rights against the United States government. you know, to the UN, and he was trying to gain international support on that. And in gaining in support, and again, I argue that even if he didn't get the support for that, the relationships that were flourishing, if those relationships were not flourish with those people, I think a lot of things would have played out differently. And I think that we need to think about that.
Good
you
point.
know?
Very good point. Did you see One Night in Miami, by the way?
I did.
What did you think?
I appreciate the nuanced portrayal of Malcolm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really did. I mean, I think people need to understand, especially during that last year. I mean, and that was right around the time like Muhammad Ali was joining the nation and Malcolm was starting, you know, coming to that decision that he had to leave. This was becoming untenable, right? And it was very painful for him to do that. Very painful. And then on top of that, he was being followed. Mm-hmm. He's being surveilled on the telephone, wherever he picked up the phone. His organization, Nation of Islam, was already infiltrated. The people, even his inner circle, had been infiltrated, as we found out later, right? And and he knows, and his life is being threatened, real life threats, you know. And so all of this pressure going on. So you see this nuanced Malcolm because he's a human being, you know, and we are human beings, and we need to understand that we can't always be strong. You know, that sometimes, you know, we need to check in with our families, you know, and it's just, I really appreciate the nuanced portrayal of Malcolm in that, especially because it did also play up that tension that Malcolm was experiencing.
Right. And it kind of focused him having his differences with Sam Cooke, and that whole thing was interesting as well.
Oh, I like that too, because I mean, when you think about Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, and Malcolm X, three of these guys are at the top. You know, they're at the top. I mean, they're breathing rarefied air at that time, right?
Indeed.
And they're supporting each other.
Yep.
You know, and they're listening to each other too, and that they're able to listen to each other, because who else can Jim Brown talk to?
Very good.
You know, and listen to, who would understand his point. Who else can Muhammad Ali talk to and listen to? You know, I mean, when you think about that, and who we have in our circles, and who we listen to, and who we don't listen to, you know, it's like these guys were at that time so important to our community and how we see ourselves too, right? Through their excellence in the performances that they did, each of them, and then their sacrifices that each of them made.
Yes, man. And that production, that speculative history it was a magisterial piece that was put together. So I appreciate One Night in Miami as well. I don't think it received the kudos it should have, because it was such a well wrought kind of interlacing of these various ideologies, these various perspectives, and it did it in such a compelling way, entertaining way as well.
Yeah, I thought so too, and it's kind of good to see, you know, what friendships at that level play out as, you know, like, and what that's like, and that they look, you can't agree with all your friends, you know, you're not gonna agree with everything. That's right. But you can learn from them.
How has becoming such a well awarded prize winner affected you? Have you noticed your head getting bigger at all?
No. My family keeps it quite grounded.
Family is good for that.
Yes. But most important, I think my view was always that this work is important. I always believed it would be important when Dad started working on this, and when he asked me, and as I said, and I used to tell my dad often, it was an honor for me to work with him on this, you know, and even though I never expected it to take us as long as it did, neither did he, but it did. And it just goes to show you about commitment and loyalty to a project, being able to understand the importance of it and seeing it through. It's hard work, you know, and I have to say, I mean, when my dad passed away, I mean, I was just so upset that he would not be here to see the publication of this, because all I knew was that this book was definitely coming out. And and my main concern was making sure that his writer's voice, was protected and saved and preserved in this book, and it is.
You certainly did that.
Are you going to do another book, or what's in the horizon?
Eventually, I want to take a moment to enjoy the moment.
Woo. After this, 600 pages? Yes, you deserve a moment or two.
Well, I tell people, I said I spent over half my life on this. I think I could take a little bit of a break.
Yes, ma'am. Indeed.
And not even think. I'm just going to.
Very, very good.
But I appreciate you, Salim, and Emma, and thank you also for entertaining my questions. I mean, it's not often we get to, talk with people who are living and experiencing the history too.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Tamara, for coming on and informing our audience of what went into making this path-breaking magisterial work of nonfiction. I think it's absolutely the most definitive biography of Malcolm, and I think it will stand the test of time, and you deserve many, many plaudits for this, you and your magnificent father. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope that you have great success from now on, and I'm sure that this book is going to reap some more awards before much time passes. So, hey, you have our support, my sister.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tamara. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And have a good day. We'll be back.
You too.
After this.
WIIFTBP.
Is that it? Okay. I'm gonna wave.
Loving you has always been easy because it's true. I would not believe if someone would have told me you would come along to reveal my soul. Cause I was done with love, my heart had grown cold. So cold. You had good energy, exactly what I needed. You walked in my life and placed the joy where was needed. Not a mirage, what I feel for you. Put that on God, girl, I'm loving you. Said it's easy to love, easy to love you. Said it's easy.
And we're back. Muwakkil'S World here, and I hope that you enjoyed this edition of Muwakkil'S World with Sister Tamara Payne. This, I don't know if you realize just how significant this book is, and how significant this interview was. It is a path-breaking volume, and any of you who are really interested in the life of Malcolm, you can't afford to miss it. It is the definitive biographical account of this extremely influential figure in our history. So please, if you get a chance, pick it up. And I hope that you enjoyed this particular edition. Emma, did you enjoy this edition?
I loved it.
Well, you were very
book.
influential in arranging this interview, so you deserve some kudos as well.
The producer does.
Thank you, my sister, and thank you, you folks in Muwakkil'S World. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Until then, peace.